What's up, NFL fans? Haven't done one of these in a while. I'm going to do a under center, all about the quarterback. And this year, unlike last year, admitted, is going to be a very interesting draft and offseason for quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm kind of glad I waited to do this video because so many things have happened since I planned on doing it. Jay Cutler's resigning in Chicago. Manziel, Bortles, Bridgewater all have really big bowl games, all win. So it's the draft order in the top 10 where a lot of these guys are going to be gone are set in stone. Zach Mettenberger's injury, who I felt was a surefire top 3 pick. I thought that even there's a possibility that he could have been elevated to the first overall pick, and I'll explain that in a minute. But in this instance, I'm going to talk about the teams that are picking, and I'm going to talk about who I feel they'll take and why. And if you'll notice, a common thread with a lot of these teams is head coaching changes. Hence, there wasn't a quarterback in place, or there was, and the guy just didn't pan out, and head coaching change was made. And you look at the teams that have quarterback staffs, more stable organizations, their tenure, their head coach is longer because the quarterback is stable. And in a lot of these organizations, unlike in Houston where they thought they were building something more long term, their quarterback, Matt Schaub, just fell off the face of the earth and wasn't able to regain any kind of form. He just seemed to have totally regressed. End up hiring Bill O'Brien, and it's don't know how well it's being received in Houston. If it's a popular choice, if not, I haven't listened to any Houston radio. I like to listen to some videos from team websites and get kind of a gauge of what they're feeling. I know that McNair said today that they might trade that first overall pick, and a lot of people will take that as like, oh wow, they want to get out of that pick. And I think that they're just trying to gauge or put feelers out there to see what if they, which I highly doubt, but an if they would trade the pick, how far they would be willing to move back and for what. Because I think if you saw what St. Louis got for just moving back like 5 spots, for like 4 or 5 spots for the RG3 trade, they got a massive deal. So they might try to view that as, hey, look, we can parlay that into something quite large, and it would accrue a lot of long-term assets for the team. But I am going to start off the draft with a little bit of a shocker. I'm going to start with, I'm only going to do the top picks 1 through 10. I'm not going to go any further because I think that's where all the meat of the quarterbacks will go. And with the first overall pick, the Houston Texans select Blake Bortles from University of Central Florida. My reasoning behind that is I feel like he represents more statuesque, has very underrated mobility, as you saw in the bowl game, has the bigger, more stout NFL body, has very good pocket awareness. And I think that Bill O'Brien, if you look at his quarterbacks that he's worked with in his career, I mean, more, recently Hackenberg, and Brady, they're more of the pocket variety, big, stand tall, used what little mobility they had. Bortles brings a little bit more mobility, and I think that they like the body there and possibly, the mind, because if you see the kid, you listen to him talk, he's quite sharp. Not saying Bridgewater isn't, I just think Bridgewater's a little bit more of a raily frame guy, and I think that Bortles represents more of the thicker frame that they would like. That's what I was mentioning before about Zach Mettenberg, 6'5", 230, 235, just big, tall, strong, drive the football down the field, and I thought that he possibly could have snuck up and gotten a top overall pick, the ACL. But with quarterbacks, you never know. He still might go. But with the first overall pick, Houston Texans select Blake Bortles. Now, this is where it gets really crazy. The second overall pick. What are the St. Louis Rams going to do? Do they stand pat? Do they take Jake Matthews, cut their losses with Jake Long? Roger Saffold is a free agent. At least I think he is. Where do they go? Do they take Jadeveon Clowney? And just What are they going to do with Chris Long? Will probably be the odd man out there. So they're in a very interesting spot and a very what could be lucrative spot because one of the other teams who want to get up there and get their guy because you know how the draft is, folks. Once the first quarterback falls, once the big domino falls, it's like the run comes. It's just a position run. You start to see those corners or those wide receivers, and everybody gets desperate and wants to attack that position. So, I mean, I have to stand pat and take it. I'm not going to mock trades or anything like that. But right now, I don't think their defense was the problem. I think the offense was more particularly the blocking. You look at their division, beast defenses in that division with Seattle, Arizona, 49ers. I do put Jake Matthews here, but do they have pause and say, hey, are we truly, this is where I'm putting the crazy part in, do they stop and say, does Les Snead and Jeff Fisher stop and say, look, are we truly committed full long term without this big contract that these guys don't have to sign? Because remember, Bradford was the last guy as the first overall pick in '09. Are we truly committed to him long term? Because right now we have this. Do we stay and take Teddy Bridgewater? That's going to be the question. Or Johnny Manziel. It'll be a very interesting. It'll be a very interesting spot in the draft if they don't trade that away day of or day before. That pick is going to be a hotbed of activity. But as of right now, Jake Matthews, Texas A&M. On to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Jaguars, again, very interesting spot. They're the team that a lot of teams are going to want to leapfrog because a lot of teams that want this particular player feel like this particular player is going to infuse that shot in the arm that organization needs. I mean, empty seats, playing games in London, whatever. I feel like if they stand pat, and that's if they stand pat, or if they don't move up or decide to trade down, because Dave Caldwell has shown he's willing to do some moving, but I feel like they need to address the quarterback position here. They can't sit there and stand on ceremony, and I feel like they go with the surest bet, the more mature player that they feel in Teddy Bridgewater. I feel like they dodged a huge bullet, but they almost got a gift in a lot of cases because a lot of people feel like he's more NFL ready than Bortles. Bortles has the bigger NFL body, and he's played very well, but they feel like Bridgewater represents, hey, we got a first overall pick at the third, so I feel like they just stay true and take Teddy Bridgewater. Now, on to what is one of the most tumultuous organizations in the NFL, followed by an even more tumultuous organization. At 4, we have the Cleveland Browns. And they almost have to go quarterback here. And for them to redeem themselves as an organization for Banner, for Haslam or any of those guys to go out and to face that fan base once training camp rolls around, I think they really have to have mended a lot of fences with this whole Chudzinski mess and whoever they hire as their coach. They really have to hit a home run with this pick. I mean, don't mind the kitten behind me. I honestly think they have to sit there and take Johnny Manziel. They have to give that organization a shot in the arm. Do they feel like he's able to play on the lake with the weather, the winds? Is his arm big enough? Do they want a guy like that they might have to? That's kind of the thinking the mentality, the question that I'm asking myself, because I personally felt that this is where Zach Mettenberger was going to go. I felt like this is exactly where he was going to be for the Cleveland Browns. Maybe there was a philosophical difference between Chudzinski and the organization's front office, the ownership about what quarterback they wanted. I don't know. I don't think Cleveland Browns fans have much trust in the ownership right now, given Haslam's issues off the field. Uh, it's a tough one. Even I'm sitting here thinking about it because I didn't write these down. I would definitely look, in my opinion, and possibly say that they might stand pat. And again, this is all depending on who the head coach is, what kind of scheme he wants to implement, what type of offense he wants to run, what quarterback does he take, how well does Manziel interview, does he turn people on, does he turn people off, all of that, and then some. So this particular pick for me represents a lot of questions, but I am going to say that they're going to pass on the quarterback here. And I know it sounds crazy. They're going to pass on the quarterback here, and they're going to take Sammy Watkins from Clemson. Want to pair him with Josh Gordon, and because their passing offense wasn't the problem. They just had no balance in the running game. They didn't have much rhythm. They threw for a lot of yards. They didn't finish off drives, and their defense got progressively worse as the year went on. But I think they want to cut the cord with Greg Little and move around some guys. And I think Sammy Watkins would be the perfect complement to Josh Gordon. And then they address the quarterback in the second round. And if they do so, I think that's where Zach Mettenberger will still be, and they'll take him there. Or they just wait and use that second pick that they got in the trade for Trent Richardson, which was a great trade, and take him there and not risk any further. And I think Zach Mettenberger would be a great quarterback. I think he'd be the perfect fit for the Cleveland Browns just because of the size and the arm. Made legitimate NFL throws every game I watched. I think he's the perfect fit. Now on to the Oakland Raiders, and here's where the 10,000-pound elephant comes off the board. I don't know how fast Reggie McKenzie, Dennis Allen, and Mark Davis can run that card up fast enough. Johnny Manziel to the Oakland Raiders at number 5. I mean, a huge infusion of energy and life and much needed buzz into that organization. They go wild, they go crazy, and they just all three smoke cigars and basically chill the rest of the draft and can stroll him out in Napa to their fan base as the face of their franchise. That's going to be a huge deal if he is that pick at 5. And if he's there, I think the Oakland Raiders would pounce on Johnny Manziel. He is Tim Tebow that could potentially turn into Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, Brett Favre, that type of gunslinger mentality, that type of movement, that type of moxie. He plays with that. Johnny Manziel to the Oakland Raiders at 5. Now, Atlanta, horrible season, a lot of injuries. They stood pat with their coaches and their front office. They kind of put up a mulligan. They're laughing right now. They're smiling. They've gotten a gift. Again, all the quarterbacks going, really good players getting pushed down. Jadeveon Clowney to Atlanta at 5 is a absolute no-brainer. O.C. Umenyiora, one-year guy after they parted ways with John Abraham. Corey Bierman's okay on the other side, but Clowney, you have to deal with Breeze, Newton, whoever Tampa Bay settles on. I felt like Glennon really played decent at points last year. Clowney, absolute no-brainer here at 6 to Atlanta. Now on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Lovie Smith as their new head coach. I kind of tend to lean toward defense here because head coaches generally want to address their side of the ball. And the one place that lacked for Tampa was a pass rush. And when you play the Tampa 2, you want to rush your 4 and drop the rest. So drop 7. And you just want to be able to create pressure with the front 4. That's what made them so successful with Sapp and Chidi Ahanatu and Brad Culpepper and Booger McFarland. I think it was they had Simeon Rice also. They just had a relentless pass rush. And I think this is where Barr comes off the board. I know a lot of people would really like to have him playing outside linebacker, but I think Anthony Barr as a rush end would be tremendous. And he also has the athletic ability to lock out and maybe keep contained also as a defensive end. And he also, I think he'll get stronger. He's only been playing offensive football for a few years, so I just think his ceiling is pointing upward with all his ability. Anthony Barr, number 7 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. On to the Minnesota Vikings, where the next quarterback comes off the board, and that's Derek Carr from Fresno State. Yes, David Carr's brother. Of course, there's going to be apprehension and comparisons to that. But if you watch David Carr play, I mean, he throws the football down the field, which was a huge criticism of Christian Ponder. He's bigger than Ponder. He doesn't have the arm issues. I know Ponder came out of Florida State with the elbow issue, and he's just been in and out of the lineup. The new head coach is going to want a quarterback to sell to the fan base. The Josh Freeman thing was a disaster. So Derek Carr here is just kind of a lock, stock, and barrel pick, in my opinion, to the Minnesota Vikings at 8. Now on to the Buffalo Bills, where they drafted the first quarterback taken last year, E.J. Manuel, who was hurt quite a bit. There's kind of rumblings about their skill position players, whether some will stay, some will go. The tight end's a free agent. And from what I understand, being a Bills fan, they want to build around E.J. Manuel, give him pieces to work with. Here, Mike Evans from Texas A&M, big, tall, Vincent Jackson-style wide receiver. Perfect fit, perfect complement to Robert Woods, Marquise Goodwin at the other receiver positions. So this pick here, kind of a no-brainer. On to 10 with the Detroit Lions, who are currently looking for a head coach. It's kind of a thing where, do they finally decide to get another receiver to help take the pressure off Calvin Johnson, help out Matthew Stafford, help develop the quarterback that they invested a lot of money in, first-round pick in, or do they have to address that defense? You're playing against the wide receivers of the Chicago Bears. You're playing against Aaron Rodgers and all his firepower. It's in Minnesota even. You still have Adrian Peterson. They have Cordarrelle Patterson, Greg Jennings. They have Rudolph. They have some good pieces, and I think that they've neglected the corner position for too long. And DeQuez Dinard is a perfect, I think, stay-at-home Michigan State guy. Good physical corner. Also possible Justin Gilbert could be a fit here. He's a little bit bigger. 6 foot, 200 plus pounds. Is a little more solid. But I put Dinard here at number 10, kind of the Michigan connection. Excuse me. So let me know what you think. I know probably I'll get some heat for the Bortles pick at number 1, but I wanted to be a little different. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know it was 18 minutes, but kind of a long video recapping all the stuff that happened and why these guys will pick who they pick and when they pick them. So you guys have a good one. Take care, and always appreciate the comments, questions, and feedback.